The rejection of contraceptives is one of the most unfashionable positions of the Catholic Church. Anyone who promotes this teaching, or even simply tries to follow it, is likely to be mocked and criticised by people both outside and inside the Church. It's hard to defend your own faith or support others in theirs if you don't know the reasoning behind challenging teachings. Therefore, it's essential that Catholics and other Christians who agree with the position have a clear understanding of the reasons why contraception is wrong. Pope Paul VI's major teaching on contraception, Humanae Vitae, or On Human Life, was released in 1968. There were many reasons for its publication. The revolution in attitudes towards authority and sexual morality that had been building throughout the 60s was reaching its peak. People feared that overpopulation would have catastrophic consequences, following dire predictions in books such as Paul Ehrlich's The Population Bomb. And when the Anglican Church permitted contraceptives in 1930, Protestant denominations followed suit one by one. Liberal groups within the Catholic Church were left asking, when is it going to be our turn? But to the dismay of many outside and inside the Church, Pope Paul VI upheld the perennial position of the Church on contraception. I'll summarise this briefly before explaining the reasoning behind the teaching. First, directly interrupting the development of a child who has already been conceived, or in other words having an abortion, is fully ruled out. So is directly sterilising a man or woman permanently or temporarily. Essentially, any action before, during or after sexual intercourse that deliberately makes sexual intercourse infertile is considered wrong. This includes cases where you're hoping to achieve what you see as a greater good, such as protecting your family's economic situation. An important caveat is that if someone is being treated for a disease, and there's a specific procedure or therapy that's necessary to cure them, even if that procedure is going to make them infertile, or otherwise make it difficult to have children, it's considered lawful for them to have that procedure. This is as long as the person isn't directly willing to avoid having children. It's a side effect of their desire to be cured of the disease. However, it's not the case that Catholics have to have as many children as they possibly can, regardless of whether they have the resources to care for them or not. If you have serious reasons for wanting to space out births in a family, then it's permissible for a couple to take into account the natural periods of fertility and infertility in the woman's natural rhythms, and only have sexual intercourse during times when she's unlikely to conceive. It's important to stop here to answer the possible objection. Isn't this just another form of contraception? What makes it any better than, say, using a condom? The Church argues that in using infertile times, the couple are legitimately using a natural condition and respecting the order established by God. They're exercising virtue in applying self-discipline and using the infertile times to show affection and help them stay faithful to each other. On the other hand, if using artificial contraception, they're impeding natural processes and separating the two aspects of sexual intercourse, union and procreation. As such, they're failing to respect the order established by God. Before I move on to further reasons for the Church's position, I want to point out that the argument presented in Humanae Vitae is not primarily biblical, but based on the idea that when Jesus commissioned Peter and the apostles to teach his commandments to all nations in Matthew 28, he made them the guardians and interpreters of the whole moral law, which includes both the law of the gospel and the natural law. This role, through apostolic succession, has been passed down through the Catholic Church. The central problem with contraception, as we've already touched on briefly, is that it contradicts God's plan and God's will by separating the two aspects of sexual intercourse. One aspect is that it's unitive. It brings couples together and strengthens their relationship. The other aspect is that it's procreative. It can bring about new life, making married couples ministers of the creative action of God. I'm not going to spend too long adding my own reflections here, but given the importance of procreation for God's plan for the world, I think it would be valuable for all couples to spend some time meditating on the privilege of being so intimately involved in creation. Next, Paul VI turned to the consequences that he predicted would follow from people using artificial contraception. It's up to you whether you think his predictions have come true or are becoming true. I certainly think that he was right. Within couples, he argued that once men become used to using contraception, they would start to approach sexual intercourse from a more selfish perspective. They would lose respect for their wives, care less about her well-being, and start to see her as, quote, a mere instrument of selfish enjoyment, which I think we would describe these days as objectification, treating someone as a means to an end. Within society, he argued that contraception would lead to a general lowering of morality. We can see this in our society today. We've largely removed the condition that naturally accompanies sex, that of the possibility of pregnancy and the responsibilities that follow. This has led to us seeing sex differently. Subsequently, the idea that sex is primarily recreational, that two people needn't be specifically devoted to each other to have sex, that using pornography is healthy and normal, and that all women have the right to an abortion have all become mainstream. Finally, he argued that allowing artificial contraception would create a temptation for governments, who might seek to solve social problems by promoting or even imposing contraception on couples. This is another thing that we've observed in recent history. Within 20 years of Humanae Vitae, governments including those in China, India, and Indonesia have subjected their citizens to horrors such as forced abortions, coercive contraception, and sterilization. But as well as warning of the dangers of contraception, Paul VI gave positive reasons why couples should choose not to use it. In particular, he described how couples who choose to temporarily abstain from sexual intercourse because of just reasons might grow as a result. It's an opportunity to develop self-discipline and build control over your own urges and passions. This helps to fight against selfishness, which in turn allows you to be a better, more attentive spouse. It also deepens both partners' sense of responsibility and helps them to mature into better parents. There's a lot more to be said about Humanae Vitae and the Church's teaching on contraception in general. Humanae Vitae is very short and well worth a read. I've tried to keep this video very short, but I'd be more than happy to develop the topic in areas such as the biblical basis for this teaching, or how the predictions of Humanae Vitae were proven right in the years after its publication. Let me know in the comments below whether that's something you're interested in. As always, please subscribe if you'd like to see future videos, and click the like button if you'd like to help more people see this video and think about its ideas. Thanks for watching.